Good to go.
She might, she's on.
All right. We'll go ahead and call to order our March 24th Wood Village Council meeting. If someone would please read the land acknowledgement.
I can read it.
Awesome. Thank you.
The Chinookan peoples known as the Clackamas and Cascades are the indigenous people of the land now inhabited by the city of Wood Village and the areas of the Columbia River. The village of Nochoclea was located near today's Blue Lake Park. Ancestral life of these people included a seasonal round of resource gathering and stewardship from the Wapato fields and fishing areas of the Columbia River to the cedar and huckleberry gatherings of the High Cascades. Introduced disease from early settlers dramatically reduced the number of these people. They signed the Willamette Valley Treaty of 1855 with the United States government and were forcibly removed to the Grand Ronde Indian Reservation. We thank the descendants of these tribes for being the original stewards and protectors of these lands since time immemorial. We also acknowledge the systematic policies of genocide, relocation, and assimilation that still impact many indigenous Native American families today. We are honored by the collective work of many Native nations, leaders, and families who are demonstrating resilience, resistance, revitalization, healing, and creativity. We are honored to be guests upon these lands.
Thank you. If we now join me with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Now we'll go ahead and move to citizens' comments on non-agenda items. Come on up.
Thank you, Mayor. Going to make it official here, so. Good evening to some familiar faces and friends. My name is Chris Damgan. Most of you know me from my day job at the Port of Portland, but I'm actually here tonight representing the West Columbia Gorge Rotary Club, which is the area Rotary Club that covers Wood Village in addition to the other two cities and the western portions of the gorge as well. So forgive me while I turn my phone on because that's kind of my speaking notes here. Last year, you may recall this council was very generous in considering a $500 donation to our first ever Paddles with Purpose pickleball tournament, which we did last April. And we had great success with it. We raised about $2,000 worth for some local causes. And as a reminder, what the Rotary has historically done, we have supported entities right here in East County, including the East County Food Pantry, which I know is near and dear to a lot of folks here. We also have some global influence as well. We've supported an effort called Shelter Box, which has provided disaster relief in war-torn or natural disaster-caused areas around the world. Rotary and particularly our club are good stewards of money. We certainly have good backing and credentials from Charity Navigator and things of that nature. And we are hoping to re-up again this year. We have a pickleball Paddles with Purpose pickleball tournament that's going to be on April 12th at the East County Pickleball Court facility in Troutdale. Like last year, we've also secured the sponsorship of Weston Auto Dealership and are also pursuing the same sponsors we had last year, which is why I'm here tonight as well. One thing we are also excited to announce this year, which is a new offering for us with the club, and let me make sure I just get my information on it. Some of you, perhaps, if you've been familiar with the Reynolds CTE program, may recall a teacher who passed away, unfortunately, recently, Eric Schneider. Eric Schneider's widow has set up a legacy scholarship fund, and our club, through its foundation, are the stewards of that effort, too. So in addition to those causes that I referenced earlier tonight, there is an added cause that we are hoping to help build out and contribute, and ultimately support locals in the Reynolds School District in the CTE specialization in pursuit of higher education through the scholarship fund from the legacy of Eric Schneider. So with that, I talked with Greg prior to the meeting, confirmed that we could humbly make this request tonight for another year of support for $500 or whatever limit the council feels is appropriate in supporting the effort. And we thank you for your consideration. And I'm happy to answer any questions for you.
Any questions, comments?
Just that, you're busy, chapter of the Rotary chapter, so, it sounds like lots of good things are happening because of that, of you.
Thank you, Councilor Minor. Yeah, we are small but mighty, and we are frequently in the community, and we're very happy to be involved with it and support where we can.
I'll make a motion if we are asking for a motion.
I think we're just agreeing on
We don't need a
500.
motion. I certainly
As
support
council
500.
just
It'd be council discretionary
Yeah.
funds.
Yeah.
Which we just gave you an update on that recently
We're
with
good
a
with
separate
that.
request a few weeks ago.
Counselor Smith, any comments, questions? Are we in favor of this? Is this something? You're still on mute.
I see that. Yeah, I think it's a worthy cause.
Thank you.
No other comments, questions? And I mean, a thumbs up would be sufficient for staff.
Yeah, just do if you want to confirm the $500 amount like last year.
correct.
Think so?
Okay, well, we'll work with then the Rotary to make sure the check goes to the right place, is made out to the right organization. So I'll connect with Chris directly.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your support. And I should have also mentioned Wood Village branding advertisement will be there, as well as a place for any information literature, including for plays at the event too. We'll be happy to accommodate that.
Appreciate that. Thank you,
Thanks,
Chris.
Great. Thank you all. Appreciate your support.
Have a good evening. Any additional comments?
Just one, I mean, it's just with all the rains we've been having, we're having more and phone calls around underground springs. And I think just again, get it out there to the general public. Yeah, this area is known for high water table. And with the rain from the winter, the rain the last few weeks, it's not uncommon, whether it's in crawl spaces or maybe flowing through yards, especially in the upper part of the village. Springs are very, very common. So we've had just a number of calls or emails about that lately. Just thought share that generally.
Right, thank you, Gray. We'll go ahead and move to resolution 2-2026, recreation immunity.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilors, give me a moment to pop up a very brief presentation. There it is. Recreational immunity. So I'm sure Chrissy could go for hours and hours about the nuances of recreational immunity. My goal is to hit the high points and what the changes recently were. So recreational immunity is governed by statute, and the basic premise is that if you provide space and land to recreate at no charge, you are exempt from, I'll call it, most liabilities from injuries, property damage while recreating. Gross negligence and things of that nature, there's some differences there. And like I said, usually the use has to be of like no charge. So you pay for a ski lift ticket and get injured, that doesn't count. But if you were, just snowshoeing, along a wilderness area and slip and fall, there's probably recreational immunity there. There's been the basic premise of fees of less than like 20 or less are still reasonable. That's why like our garden fees are $20. So there's still thought of as coverage with recreational immunity, along with obviously our general liability. Now, over the past probably decade and a half, there's been some updates to this based on court law, some court cases, and that's what this most recent update was about. So this actually, the incident happened a few years ago, coastal city in Oregon, individuals using a paved pathway to access the beach, and injury of some kind. Well, they claimed they weren't recreating. They were using that pathway as commuting. They were commuting to the beach to then recreate. So recreational didn't apply because they weren't recreating on that particular trail. Court sided with that injured person, said, yeah, I mean, that's not a recreational trail. That's a commuting trail or a pathway. So obviously insurance carrier cities got really excited about that and excited by, started closing trails and posting signs and all sorts of things. Legislature a few years ago did a temporary fix, recently made permanent. But what was interesting about this latest update was you had to opt into it. Typical, how updates have typically done is they just change the statute and it applies if you meet the criterion, it applies. This you need to expressly opt into, which we were notified by our insurance agent about a month ago. We have a couple check-ins a few times a year and said, yeah, we just heard this, like you have to opt in. And so that's what this resolution does, is expressly opts in to the updated recreational immunity. So it's essentially that it's covers our public easements, unimproved right-of-ways, trails. It also, you can extend it to the land kind of abutting those easements and trails, or if it is an easement, we don't have any ones. All of our trails are on city property, but we've had opportunities or discussions in the past where it would have been through some easements and things, so I'll just cover it now. Also, the way it's written based on the law can also cover kind of, nonprofits, volunteers that may be working on said trails or pathways. So took this language directly from the ORS and the legislative language. So relatively straightforward. Again, typically we don't have to take affirmative action in this, but in this case, you had to opt into it. So if you have any questions, happy to have Christy answer those. And then I have a suggested motion there.
Questions, comments by the council?
No.
So like on your fun run that you did for Halloween with the costumes and stuff, and you went from city property to Edgefield property, is that included then, or is that?
That'd be a Play East question. That's technically a Play East event, which I'm sure has its liability coverage.
Yeah, so when folks register for that one, they sign a waiver. And that waiver talks about having understanding that there are risks involved in participating, and they're assuming those risks
Okay.
through that waiver.
And is that the same for events and stuff that are held here on the city property? That exclusion would include all of those?
So because we don't charge for our events, we get recreational immunity. Again, except for like gross negligence. So let's just say there was a sinkhole in the middle of the field and we knew about it for some time and had opportunities for correction. We said, no, we're just gonna ignore it. And someone fell into said sinkhole. Recreation immunity wouldn't cover that. But someone at an event, enjoying the event, walking on the trail, tripping and hurting themselves, recreational immunity would apply, or at least would be our defense in that case.
I mean, it seems something pretty straightforward that we should take action on. And so, I mean, without any further questions or comments, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution 2-2026, updating the city's recreational immunity protections.
I'll second.
First and second, any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move to resolution 3-2026. Community commitment to public safety.
Well, I think it's affirming services to the public is how I ultimately named it in the staff report and resolution. This is based on our conversations that we had back in February, where there's been different cities having conversations around mostly concerns around immigration. What's the city's role? I think, both in communicating with its community members, advocating on either side of issues. You all had that conversation in February, kind of based on, Gresham took recent action. And then, there's the county had a state of emergency where funding was made available or potentially other programs. And we've had some community conversations with groups. So like, hey, what's the city's doing? What's the city's role in all of this? So based on our previous council meeting, said, some kind of resolution walking through the city's, what's the city's role in the scheme of the different layers of government, and what are our priorities in terms of serving community seemed to be an outcome of that meeting. And so the mayor and I essentially drafted this resolution Some of it taken just from like our mission model and goals, some of it borrowed from other resolutions, but it did kind of spell out that, you know, our country has a long history based on immigration. That is also a federal responsibility. And they have their rights and duties and the like, and we have our responsibility to uphold, you know, constitutional values just the same and serve our people, make sure people have a sense of community and safety. So I don't want to go on the nuances of all the whereases and therefores, but certainly kind of now have you all have a chance for a conversation. And while certainly it's presented here tonight as I'll call adoption ready, clearly there's time and opportunity for revisions, improvements, and bring it back at a different time.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly add, you know, this was really formed through the discussion we did have in February. So really taking into consideration, you know, all the discussion we had as a council, and, you know, the goal Greg and I had was to really make it feel that way, that, you know, we listened to everyone's opinion and took it into consideration in drafting this here. And you know, yeah, I'll just open it up to comments to the council at this point.
Well, it's pretty obvious. If we're a city council and we're a city, we shouldn't shy away from a proclamation that talks about supporting the Constitution and supporting a rule of law and supporting our citizens that live in our community. It's pretty apparent that if we're a city and a city council, we ought not to shy away from a proclamation that speaks to the Constitution as a cornerstone of our country and the equal protection under law that's in the Constitution, and the protection from individuals of protection of individuals that may be immigrants, protection and make sure that they are still protected by the Constitution. So for me, this is things we should be doing. We should be taking stands when we know that there are issues or action that is in conflict to the Constitution. So I appreciate the work, the conversation we had here, and the mayor and our city manager working on this language. This is nonpartisan. This is about fundamental liberties and our fundamental responsibilities as elected officials. So again, I appreciate the work that you put into this proclamation.
And I wanted to add that this is not something new for us. This is something that we display in everything that we do, and it's our purpose. It's our purpose more mapped out and more detailed. And it's all just, it's on writing. So, and I think sometimes with everything, you know, when there's purpose, it's not just something that we do and how we act, but it has to be more grounded in a form of a resolution. But yeah, thank you again for coming up with the wording.
I agree with the letter, the way it's written. It's a constitutional right, and it's a human right. I concur, and thank you for doing a good
Mhm.
Counselor Smith, any comments, questions?
No, I do like the way it's written. I think it gives clear value from our city.
Again, you know, this was a collective effort, you know, it really, from that discussion was able to help us, more define, you know, what we wanted to relay in this message. So, with no further comments, I mean, I guess I would entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve Resolution 3-226, our commitment to public service.
I second.
First and second, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
You know, if I can say one other point about this. This is occurring across the nation. And there is, as you may know, a march in Gresham this Saturday that is exactly about the Constitution. It's exactly about the equal protection of individuals in the nation. And while this wasn't certainly time for that, it just happens to be this Saturday, and Gresham is hosting one of those marches. And there's 3,000 plus marches across the nation this Saturday to support just exactly this kind of language. I've been to a couple of those, and they're nonpartisan. And the individuals that are there, it's all about what this proclamation is for. So it is a good timing. I think we didn't plan it that way, but I certainly will be at the event this Saturday. So, and my wife Jan and I are hosting a little luncheon afterwards. So anybody that wants to come over for lunch, you know, I won't be taking roll call at the March, but you're welcome to come by our home and have lunch at shortly after 12.
Well, thank you, Councilor Minor, for that. You know, again, this is really falls in line with our values, so appreciate everyone's input in that. We'll go ahead and move right along to Director of Public Works report.
Well, it's good to see you, Mayor, councilors. I feel like it's been a while. So this last month was exciting for us because we completed a lot of tasks that had built up on our list. We did a lot of, as you guys know, we hired 4 new utility workers, utility worker 1. So we'll have pictures of those next, but they worked very hard in the park last month, getting kind of a lot of the vegetation brought back, redoing a lot of the cedar chips that have been washed out over the winter. Of course, that's an ongoing thing as the spring continues. They were able to do some work on the community garden. So they replaced a fence line for the extension, and then we're able to get all of the boxes in. We'll be working on the fence around the garden in the next couple weeks, probably after Easter, but all of those plots are ready to be planted in now. So we wanted to make sure that was done before that season is over. Staff did work at our Reservoir 1 site as well. There's a fence line that is shared with a community member, and a lot of growth in that fence line. So they kind of worked with the community member to get a lot of that arborvitae and the growth out of that fence line. I think they're going to do some of their own work on their side, but get some vegetation cleared out from up there. And then they did a lot of pressure washing. So they all of our lift stations were pressure washed. I believe they hit a couple of our well facilities, areas around City Hall and the park. They were able to hit a lot of storm manholes and then all of the sewer manholes in preparation of the INI inflow and infiltration project that will be starting here shortly too, for our sewer system. And then there was a section on the Rata fence line, that had blown down. I believe it was actually last year that they were able to get repaired and then start pressure washing that fence line too. So a lot of many other things, that they accomplished last month, and you can see our new staff. That's kind of our fully loaded utility staff now, but Jeremy and Miguel. Jeremy's been here a couple of years, Miguel he's been here 6 months, but Tristan, Connor, Nick, and Garen are all new as of last month and have been working very hard. Exciting news. So we did, I'm trying to move Pat. Our water loss for last month had risen to a little over 16%. But as if you guys have read the weeklies, we believe we found a pretty decent leak in the 238th hillside. Staff were able to repair that. So next month, we are going to cross our fingers that we see a decent drop in that percentage. So that is kind of the big highlight for this last month and a half.
And it'll be the month after that. Because the read we just did will be the next one.
Okay,
Sorry.
in the next couple months. But I will say we were looking at our SCADA system the last couple days, and it does seem like the periods in between the well runs have grown. So it definitely has, we can see a difference. What that exact number, Becky will figure that out for us as soon as we're able. But we should see significant change in that. And then we have a couple other areas in the system that we'll use our listening device, see if we hear any other areas. As you know, we won't have a perfect system, but we are working to better it. So any questions?
Questions, comments by the council?
I don't have any questions, but the workers are very friendly. They say good morning to me every morning. Not that they're here in my house, but you know, when I walk the dog and they smile, and that's not really usual with, you know, people working out there. And I just want to give a thumbs up to them. They're great.
We'll pass that along. We were talking about that today. They were in the rain pulling weeds with smiles on their faces.
Yeah.
Singing.
One of singing, a little bit of dancing in between.
You sure that wasn't Greg?
It's very similar.
Sounds like it.
Part of the interview process, you got to audition.
That's our secret.
Now, I will also say the times I've come here, I mean, they're always moving, doing something, you know, they're just accomplishing a lot of great things for this park. You know, this is mostly where I see them a lot. And so it's just great to see that the team's fully staffed and, you know, ready to get some things accomplished, you know, and get ready for the community. So.
Been nice.
Yes.
We have been excited. Jeremy has been excited to
I
get
bet.
his list shortened a little bit. But. Well, thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go ahead and move to Director of Finance report.
Try to do my best Seth impression. Evening, Mayor, Councilors, the finance report is in your packet. Revenues are on track. Expenditures are being monitored. What questions can I entertain?
Pretty spot on, I got to say.
He's a bit under the weather, left a little early today. But in all seriousness, yes, actually revenues are looking really well. Expenditures are tracked on target. Obviously, the big thing is budget coming up next month. In my report, I have a little conversation about that. But generally, yeah, what questions do we have? But all in all, it's looking well, working with the county and trying to work on some BIT data, business income tax. Again, really just trying to protect that resource. That is a shared resource, not a county gift. So trying to always remind the county of that, especially as it faces a near $12 million general fund deficit. So.
Questions, comment by the council?
Very thorough report.
No, yeah, I think Seth does a good job in including all these information in there and then just providing some high level updates and calling out the important things. So
Yeah,
appreciate it.
interest is still looking nice, which has been nice.
Yeah, that's a good piece. All right, now we'll go ahead and move the city manager report.
And I actually have a little PowerPoint today because there's a few things of note I wanted to touch on this evening, some project updates, initiative updates and the like. Let me try to move some things around real quick. Here we go. So I want to give a quick update on our wetland park. So that's the new park going to be at Wood Village Boulevard and Nevada Road. You know, we've had to do some redesign work around that, part of which is to match the updated delineation, which is now in process at the state. But also when we looked at what we had developed, it wasn't quite construction ready. So I have a new firm. They've been actually really, really good to work with. In looking at this plan, they've reimagined parts of it. And I have I'll call it a draft layout. I'll show you next, but they've added some pathways kind of around the perimeter and some internal ones. They're actually saving several existing planting areas and just proposing essentially cleaning them up a bit, maybe a bit of targeted thinning, but really keeping some good assets. There's cattails, I want to say like a wild rose of some kind, some trees. But different pockets or nodes of current vegetation, which is both the value in terms of permitting the project, but also just in terms of cost and just keeping what's good. However, not a lot of room for other activities as previous conversations. Oh, there might be room for different features. It's mostly going to be viewpoints, interpretive paneling, and a few kind of picnicky areas. There's really not a lot of room for anything else other than that. Still community input, certainly around gateway features and those interpretive areas, but in terms of other potential recreation, not a lot of opportunity with that. We were hoping to bring you this evening a change order. Well, not that we were hoping to bring you the change order, but we anticipated a change order for this contract, essentially for the elevated crossings through the wetland. They need it would benefit from advanced structural engineering before bidding, because these can be long lead time items as you go over those storm facilities. So we're looking at, you know, some contract management as we bid and build the project with Herrera, the landscape architect, the structural engineering side of it, but then the structural side of it wanted some geotechnical work to make sure what they put on is stable. That came back really, really high. I'm not going to throw out the number, just it made us uncomfortable. And Herrera's going back to maybe either back to the structural to see what kind of minimal scope would be sufficient, and going to some other geotechnical firms to bring it more within the realm of the project scope. So at your next meeting in April, we should have a change order for your approval for those 3 items. But in the meantime, here is an updated site rendering of it. So we have, again, Nevada Road's up here, Wood Village Boulevard's there. So the previous one just kind of had this half moon from here to here. We've now, you know, it's a little curvy, not just a straight, you know, pathway. And so, you know, boardwalks here, this is decomposed granite, but then we've got this pathway along the perimeter here. And then these ones kind of more internally, those would be the wood chipped ones. But this is, you know, these are those elevated crossings. We actually did add one here at the corner, which I think all of us were always hoping for, because that's kind of a gateway corner. So got that in there. Some wildlife viewing areas here and here, habitat enhancements there and there. So again, still being refined, still being developed, but we were really excited about more than just a half moon trail from one point to the other.
Yeah.
Nice.
So any
And they structured the lower portion of the trail section to go through the vegetation that they're keeping, because there's some red
Twig things around here, wasn't there?
Yeah, and then there's some other vegetation that they're keeping, so they're kind of working the trails through that natural vegetation.
Do we know if the walkways are like narrow or wider or the?
8 feet?
8 feet for the most part, 6 foot, like especially along that northern section, just because there's not a lot of room between the wetlands and the existing trees. But the main portion, 8 feet. And parts of it 6, so still pretty wide.
That is wide, yeah.
Yeah, we wanted it wide, both one ADA considerations, but also if you have people with strollers or things, it's just plenty of room.
Mhm.
And the elevated part is if you're coming in, let's say off of Rada here on that west entrance.
Yeah, so this is
Oh, that's
elevated
elevated.
because there's basically, I call them a storm ditch. I am confident there's a more technical, better name for it, but storm ditch pretty much along this whole entire
Yeah.
section that you have to cross over. And then there's the boardwalk section here.
So that's elevated.
Correct,
Yeah.
kind of over the wetland.
Yeah.
This little trail is actually kind of neat. They call it a burrito trail because how they construct it allows water to kind of permeate through it without ruining its like integrity of the trail itself. They thought that was a nice opportunity for that one because it's not, it's kind of wetland adjacent, not in the middle of it where you really want the less impact.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this really provides an opportunity of, that trail aspect in nature, even along the Arata Inwood Village Boulevard, just having those trails on the inner side of
You could loop it if you want,
Yeah.
do a couple of laps and
Yeah,
things.
so it's a great piece.
Oh, it's gonna be a real asset to this community.
Yeah, it is better than just kind of the half moon, even though that half, clean, but I think this gives it more.
This is better.
This is better, yeah.
Yeah. So a quick update on the regional fireworks. So there was the big East County meeting on the 12th that laid out, I call a hypothetical new fire district. It really was putting some costs to that 8 1/3 station concept and kind of what apparatuses was where, what kind of personnel does that look like? It also took a run at, I'll call it the admin and back of house personnel. So more of like your fire marshal's office, your training, and then, that more traditional just admin. And it came to, $52 million thereabouts and about 10 more than current costs. The next meeting here in April, presumably we'll get something similar from District 10. Not sure what that will look like or what it's costing, but kind of an overall agreement point is that, this needs to be 8 1/3 stations. We need to add at least 2 stations to this service area. So it'll be interesting to see what District 10 comes in at, because if it's similar to 52 some odd million, we've already done the financial analysis working by we, I mean, again, this group that shows its collection at its current rate is about, 40 to 43 million. So again, kind of current operations. And while there is agreement on, we need to add at least 2 stations, there's still a big question of who's leading, if it's a new district or even a consolidation, who's leading that? What does it look like? What are our collective roles in that? And so I think there's still outstanding questions, especially Gresham was very careful to say, this isn't the Gresham concept. This is just a concept. So, I think that kind of made some people scratch their heads and go, well, if it's not a Gresham concept and it's not our concept, what is it? And kind of what does that mean? So I am having a meeting with Eric Schmidt tomorrow morning talking about fire and I think ways to structure some future meetings to, I think, create just collective ownership from all the groups. I think some could feel like, hey, this is more, again, just being led by Gresham and, where's our voice in it? And I think Gresham, for their credit, is being very careful saying, look, we're not trying to dictate a solution or path or plan. They are, however, subject matter experts in this. They've operated a fire department for over 100 years, or the current operator. So there's just things that they know, have, and do that are valuable in this. And I think we just have to figure out how we can bridge some of those gaps between, okay, Gresham, you don't want to own it, and your reasons are probably valid. And it's like, where do we get to step in and own things? So I think that we're trying to solve that. In addition, at your last meeting on the 10th, it was more of a training with a brief discussion, more about the public safety levy, which pushed till May of 2027. So, I mean, a year from now, that would be referred and doing its thing. And a lot of the meeting just focused on how are we communicating with our communities over the next, I'll call it 11 months around this initiative, issue, and effort. Certainly, there's some neighborhood groups and associations that we can target and communicate with. It also sounded like the hope was, as you just talk with neighbors and people you already know, you have some tools, basic knowledge, the talking points to start those conversations. And if they have more questions, lead them to whether it's the website or maybe a larger meeting. It does seem like, as Reynolds is looking to do a potential bond in November, it's trying to do some community asset mapping. There could be some synergies around, not want to say like combined efforts where it's like one meeting they're talking about their levy, we're talking about fire. But who knows who can get meetings with who, and how can we have, conversations about, I'll call it regional community investment, and what does that mean and what does that get us? Overall, though, so we're still doing our weekly social media posts and have those scheduled out. There's our website, newsletter, and continuing at events. So right now, we're just kind of pushing, say, the same talking points, but kind of the background, the why, the changing nature of the service, and our effort that we're doing now. And as those gaps fill in, great, let's just add those to those literature pieces. So one thing we're doing at Easter is we were hoping, because we had some initial talks with the League of Women Voters who got some money to do the ranked choice voting education in this area, said, hey, we'd love to have some examples of things you'd want to ask people, and we could use that as some education for adults and kids. So it's great, fire and playground. And then like, whoa, we don't have it ready for Easter in, a week and a half. We're thinking more of your night out. Well, that's great. So we just then rebranded that to a dot exercise for the Easter event that adults can, great, of these choices, kind of which do you prefer? And then for kids with the playground, what equipment pieces do you, pick 3 out of the however many. So just a nice little engagement piece for Easter that we hope to have. And again, kind of continuing that conversation. But again, I think continuing to move forward, it's just keeping everyone on the track and just making sure that everyone's still comfortable with how things are progressing and that questions are getting answered. And again, it's kind of unfortunate in the sense that Gresham's getting a lot of, I'll just call it hard technical questions, especially around like, what is most cost effective? What is most cost efficient? Which could be seen as, hey, you're saying we're not those things. And in reality, it's just trying to understand what is a cost effective. What does that mean? What does it look like? What are the impacts if you cut this versus cut that? And because we just don't know it. And so unfortunately, the burden falls on them to answer those questions. So it also could be, is there another way to answer those questions that isn't necessarily, not that we are finger pointing, but is definitely not finger pointing. So we're working on it. Well, I'm confident we'll get there. Quick update on our, big street project.
Just a question on the fire.
Mm-hmm.
If I understand it right, District 1 is still in line to make a proposal.
Correct. So kind of how we have things laid out is, so next month is District 10. Now, typically our meetings are more at the start of the month, and District 1 said it can't really re-engage in this conversation until after the May election because it's focusing its efforts with its current elections, which I think is May 17th. So that would be more of the latter part of May to at least start that conversation and then understand what the group needs and what District 1 needs to put together some sort of package proposal or thing. Presumably, I'd like to believe sometime in the early midsummer, we would have something from 1. So in theory, we'd have this I'll call it, organically developed new district proposal. We will have District 10's proposal and District 1's proposal. The question then is, what do you do with that? My thought, and I've talked a little bit with the mayor about this, is it might make sense to bring in kind of an independent consulting firm to evaluate those and flush them out a bit more of like, hey, this sounds good on paper, and in reality, we see all these potential issues down the line. Or it's like, hey, this really has some legs, still some things to run down, but group, we who have no stake in the game would suggest follow this path and, do these types of things to flush it out. That's my thought. Obviously other cities will have their thoughts, other considerations. The mayor and I met with the Special Districts Association of Oregon yesterday. Because we've always heard starting a new district is very, very difficult. And they confirmed that. They also confirmed for cities and or, District 10 trying to do a combined thing is unheard of. So kind of pick your hard potentially, but either way, they said it sounds like you all have to kind of move together. And, everyone needs to have buy-in if that's to be successful. They also said, everyone's facing financial struggles and challenges. They also said from their perspective, I think this is their perspective, they foresee at least the metro region fire service going. You have Portland being Portland, then there's TVFNR, and then Clackamas 1, because they're both just continuing to annex and consolidate. They're not seeing really any new districts being formed, and mostly you're seeing, even outside the metro area, other more rural districts merging and consolidating. Just you get the efficiencies, economies of scale, and potentially the ability to kind of push and pull your rate a little bit.
I think another piece that they mentioned really quick was also just cutting down redundancy in certain models and cost obviously is a big piece to shaving off some of those redundancies. So it was pretty eye-opening, actually, a good discussion with them. So
Well, I'm pleased to hear that one is, albeit they got to get through the May election, but they still seem committed to committed to proposals.
Correct.
And to be a part of this, be a player in this.
Yeah, I think it'd be a safe statement to say that anytime someone, whether it's an agency, cities, come to them with, hey, we have these opportunities or questions or potential, they at least want to look at that. Their goal is public safety, fire prevention, and fire management. So they say if they can play a role in that, they're happy to take a look at it. So on the street, so the big project we had outlined for this year was the 236th Hill rebuild. That's the main gateway from Lower Village to the Upper Village. Terrible condition. We've been doing some engineering work to understand what's going on kind of under the surface. Luckily, it seems like the base is actually in pretty good shape. The street itself was only done with a 2-inch pavement, which fine for a driveway. Usually a roadway is 3 to 4 to 6. This probably would have been a 4-inch, and they did 2, which is causing some of the issue. But as always, since we're going to probably be doing some kind of tear out and rebuild, looking at opportunities, and there's just some stormwater opportunities at that section to kind of reroute it for some back lots and potential to address some other, as we talked first thing in the meeting, some natural springs and flows that come off that area, capture that on the other side of 236 as well and tie it in at the bottom. So we're trying to do some design work with that, potentially actually do the work in-house, but have it designed. So it's just pushed the project schedule back a little bit. So you'll see it in the upcoming budget for the upcoming fiscal year, but we hope to bid it for a project late summer, early fall of still this calendar year. But there's a quick little update on that. We haven't talked much about it, but that's kind of why as we're trying to add some pieces to it since we have that opportunity. So I've lost track of your all's upcoming vacations and where you're going to be when. So quick conversation here. Obviously, there's Easter on the 4th. That's here 10 noon. We have our council meeting on the 14th. budget the following Tuesday. Right now, there's nothing on the April 28th agenda. But then we have council on the 12th, cleanup the 16th, and council down on the 26th. And just wanted to see where everyone is going to either physically be able to remote in at, or none of the above for which meetings. So if we do need to cancel something, we do that in advance, reschedule, but certainly we need a quorum for the 21st. And again, that can be remote and in person.
Yeah, I would echo that sentiment. The 21st is our budget hearing, so that one out of, all these are important, but that one's got a next.
Out of all the bullet points, we need the
Yeah.
21st.
The 21st, and so that is a Tuesday.
The
Oh,
mayor already told me about that one. I have that one on my calendar.
And I have it, I'll be virtual.
And then you're out in May, correct, council?
May.
Okay.
Okay, so let me just,
Then Counselor Smith, I know you're,
I'm here.
Okay.
May and April. Yeah, I'm good for all.
For me, I will be out the 28th. Will be out of the state.
the country.
Not yet, not out of the country, but out of the state. So
well, I'm gone on the 28th also.
I am here.
But like I said, we don't actually have anything hitting that agenda, so it wouldn't be much to push that, especially given we have budget on that 21st. So I think right now we'll plan on canceling the 28th.
Sounds
What-
good.
What didn't I just respond to a date for budget? What was that for?
It was mostly, actually, it was for the non-council members of the budget committee
Okay.
and then non-council members of urban renewal, to give them the 5-year, give them kind of a recap of the annual retreat, just so when we do all come together for budget, they're working with similar information that you all had previously. So yeah, wasn't necessarily for council's always invited, but it's meant for the non-council budget members and urban renewal members, just to get up to speed on those big picture items.
I think Caroline sent a follow-up today.
Yes, she did.
Just kind of mentioning that. so.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
Caroline, if you're out there, I won't be there. Even though I said I gave you a couple of dates.
Okay, another quick reminder, you should have received an email from the Oregon Government Ethics Commission about your statement of economic interest. Counselor Goth, that would be new for you, so it'll take a little bit of time for you to fill out. For those that are renewing it, if nothing changed, it's pretty simple. But again, you have to do it online through their website, but they have really great contact information for questions or concerns logging in. And if you didn't get that email, let me know and I can see what I can do to try to help. But certainly.
You're safe. I already did it.
Yep, I'm done too.
Wonderful. So then lastly, speaking of the budget on the 21st, food preferences, food thoughts, pies remain tricky to get. So also open to other dessert options.
Don't ask me, don't use something
Don't
you
be
guys.
difficult.
I'm not difficult.
Healthy options, okay.
Thank you.
We're
Healthy.
talking just dessert or?
No, the whole, what do we want for the food, kind of the main meal and the dessert?
Surf and turf and baked Alaska.
Yes, I second that.
Pepperoni pizza with sushi and Neapolitan ice cream.
It doesn't
What do you
matter
think?
to me, whatever is. I eat pretty much
I can
everything.
eat whatever. I just pick around it. I'm good.
Okay, I
That's
think
the option then.
I'll get the foodies on it then.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that was
Thank
the
you.
last of my very now lengthy manager update. But again, there was just some key big projects, key issues we hadn't had some discussion on in a while. So I just wanted to have the opportunity to talk that out, but happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Any questions, comments on the city manager report?
None.
Thank you very much.
Then we'll go ahead and move the city attorney report.
Hi, everyone. Good evening, council. Nice to see you all. I don't have anything specifically for the city attorney report. I just thought I would share, and I told Greg this. I've been tracking some of the bills that came out of this short legislative session that ended earlier this month. Most of those haven't been signed yet and are awaiting signature, but if it would be of interest to council, I'd be happy to maybe talk about some of those in a future city attorney report, assuming, you know, that they either get signed or are not vetoed.
Yeah, I think that'd be great to get that in a future date.
Yeah.
All right, then we'll go ahead and move to mayor and council comments. I will just quickly start with, we've been asked to write a letter for, you guys all probably got an email from maybe the sheriff about budget reductions this coming fiscal year for the county. It's kind of something that's been going on for some time now. And so, Greg and I crafted a letter, so I'll share that later today on kind of our response on focus areas that we are hoping that the county will consider not reducing in or eliminating. One big piece will be the HOPE team. Understanding that is probably our number one, if not our only one, service response, homeless service response out here for the city of Wood Village. So we had our chief also kind of look at it, just kind of give our thumbs up, and he's fully supportive of what we put out there. So we'll continue to push on that. There's also just some further discussions. We've sent some stuff out to our commissioner on the ambulance service plans and transportations. And so we're keeping the pressure on and monitoring that aspect. And so we're figuring out how we can continue to have this on the county's forefront in a manner where it represents better service and response for our communities out here, not only Wood Village, but all of East Multnomah County. But again, we're kind of taking the lead on those two kind of components there. So just wanted to share that with the council. And as soon as we get some of the things we've sent out, I'll share that with all of you all, so you guys can just read and kind of just be updated in those efforts as well. So I will open it up to other council comments, questions. None. We have our Easter extravaganza, April 4th, starting at 10 right here at the park. Cross our fingers for some good weather. And nothing else, we will see you guys on Saturday or the first meeting in April. Meeting adjourned.
All right.
Have a good evening, Pat. Have a good evening.
Yes.
Two good
you too.
topics to be working with the county on.
Hi, Pat.